Viridian, the Green Guide, written by Clouds, read by Distracted by Books, Chapter 119, Reunion. Kotsky didn't want to admit it, but he was worried about the nerd. He'd wanted to stay at the police station, but after Tsukashi had called his parents, he hadn't been able to figure out any way to explain why he was so insistent on staying, without letting it slip that it wasn't just some random vigilante who had gone missing. But if he told his old hag that it was Izuku, then they'd tell Auntie Inko and it would all be a whole thing. Thankfully, Dunceface had shot him a text after he'd woken up from his whole brain-frying thing, saying that they had a list of locations and that Kurogiri was warping All Might all over town to check them out. It had been about the longest hour of Kotsky's life until Kaminari texted again to say that Eraserhead had been found, but Izuku had run away. Again. The nerd wouldn't run too far, though. Kotsky knew how much Izuku cared about his mom. He wouldn't leave her or do anything stupid like that. Kotsky couldn't even count the times the nerd had almost died and just gone home without thinking anything of it. So he knew this time wouldn't be any different, even if he couldn't call Auntie again without freaking her out. Izuku was almost definitely just at home, sleeping off whatever had happened, and he'd just have to get the details later when the nerd woke up. That didn't stop the anxiety from playing in the background as he picked at his lunch, but that wasn't going to go away until he knew that Izuku was safe. Now, if only he could get his old hag off his back. Kotsky was acting really weird. On the one hand, Mitsuki knew that his moping around the house was somewhat justified. His teacher had gone missing and his internship had been put on hold. But on the other, it just seemed like there had to be something she was missing. Kotsky didn't normally worry about other people too much, but she'd practically had to drag him out of the police station, insisting that he'd done all he could and that he needed to leave it to the pros and get some sleep. She was pretty sure he hadn't actually slept, but at least she'd tried. She still didn't understand why he was so upset, though, because he wasn't even really that worried about Aizawa. From what little she understood of the situation, Kotsky was way more worried about the vigilante that had gone missing alongside him, which didn't make any sense, especially since when she'd asked why he was so invested, Kotsky had just given up and agreed to go home rather than tell her why. So she knew he was keeping something from her. A part of her wanted to cuff him over the head and yell at him until he told her the truth, but she'd raised her son long enough that she knew he had a stubborn streak a mile wide, so that wouldn't do any good. Plus, well, her son was a strong boy and he knew what he was doing. If she pushed too hard, she risked him blocking her out. But annoying as practicing patience was, there was a high chance that Kotsky would come to her when he was ready. If not, then she could try yelling. Her phone rang and she glanced at Kotsky, who didn't even look up from his food as she answered. Yeah, this is Mitsuki. Hi, Mitsuki. Inko's voice sounded cheerful on the other end, but something about it also made alarm bells go off in Mitsuki's brain. Could you maybe let Kotsky know that the next time my son gets kidnapped by a villain, I would appreciate being informed? Mitsuki whipped around as everything finally fell into place. Kotsky Bakugo! So much for not yelling. The tracking anklet felt weird. Izuku had expected it to be heavier, but really it was just there. And that was enough to have him pulling up his pant leg every few seconds. He was going to be a hero. Sure, the Hero Commission was only allowing him to become a hero because of a loophole, but that's the only reason he'd become a vigilante anyway, so it kind of seemed fitting. He still couldn't believe it. But Eraser said that his meeting with Hound Dog tomorrow would help with that, at least a little. He was just kind of ignoring the whole being a hero thing and trying to focus more on the joining Class 1A thing. He'd be able to spend more time with Kacchan and Denki, plus their classmates had so many interesting quirks, and Izuku was actually really looking forward to analyzing them and helping everyone improve, assuming that anyone was actually willing to take advice from a quirkless kid. Mom and Eraserhead were going over some paperwork with Detective Tsukachi, but Izuku couldn't leave without setting off the alarms on the tracker, so he was just hanging around in the hall, trying not to draw attention to himself. He'd seen a lot of heroes, including some like an old man in a yellow cape that he didn't even recognize, and multiple police officers running around the station, all in the wake of All for One's. Well, they were probably busy cleaning up his mess, so he didn't want to get in the way. Is Vir... Denki's voice made him look up, and Izuku had to hold back laughter at the adorably frustrated look on his boyfriend's face as he whispered, what am I supposed to call you right now? And why are you in the police station? Izuku smiled apologetically and lifted up his pant leg to show Denki his anklet. My secret identity is gone now, so I guess either name is fine. I kinda got arrested. Oof! Denki grimaced. Congratulations? Izuku snorted, thanks. I mean, Eraser's been trying to get me to join the hero course for months now, so at least we'll be in the same class. Denki's face brightened. Really? Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to introduce you to everyone, and Mina is going to literally die. Oh, well, probably not literally. I'm sorry. It's such poor taste. I mean, with what you just had to do and everything, I'm so sorry. I'll shut up now. Denki looked horrified, and Izuku swallowed a bit of bile. They told you what happened? Yeah, Denki nodded. I didn't, see the body or anything, besides, the bag they brought in, but All Might and Gran Torino had to go back to the morgue and identify him and everything. Apparently, killing him was supposed to be my job as the next holder of One for All, if you can believe that. So I guess I should thank you? Oh, Izuku said blankly. You're welcome? Denki just shrugged. So, how are you holding up? You just got arrested and you told me I could use either name, so I'm assuming the heroes know your identity and other stuff? Izuku took a deep breath. You mean that I'm quirkless? Yeah, everyone knows now. Cool. Denki looked slightly lost. But they're still letting you join the rehabilitation program, right? Kinda? Izuku frowned. I don't really qualify, but Eraser cornered the Hero Commission into making that announcement so that they couldn't take it back after learning that I was quirkless. I think I'm more just a delinquent student of UA more than anything. Denki grinned. Hey, if being a delinquent student gets you a hero license, then that works. You gotta do whatever it takes to win, right? Izuku blinked a few times, then smiled slowly. I hadn't thought of it like that. You're pretty smart, Denki. Denki bumped him with his shoulder. What can I say? I had a great teacher. Izuku squirmed under Gran Torino's stare, unsure why this felt worse than meeting Denki's actual parents. Gran Torino, who was apparently that hero he hadn't recognized earlier, just looked down his nose at him. A feat in and of itself, considering how short he was, and Izuku couldn't even read his expression. This was terrifying. After a long minute, Gran Torino finally spoke. So, you're the kid who took down All for One. It wasn't a question, but Izuku nodded anyway. Gran Torino didn't say anything else, so Izuku just bit his lip and looked around. All Might was sitting in the corner, and Izuku really didn't want to talk to him. But this whole thing was so awkward already that he couldn't possibly make it worse. Sorry for stalking you. All Might spat up a lungful of blood, and Izuku grimaced. You should really get that looked at. All Might wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and stood up a little straighter. It was somewhat stalking, but you were simply trying to look out for your friend. And you pointed out risks that I myself was unaware of, so no hard feelings. Izuku hesitated. Do you remember me? Gran Torino raised an eyebrow. You cornered the #1 hero on his roof, and you're seriously asking if he remembers you? Kid, you overestimate how forgettable you are. No, from before? Izuku shrunk in on himself. I asked you once if I could be a hero. Aizawa said you were quirkless. All Might's face fell. My boy, I'm so sorry. Izuku smiled sadly. I just wanted to make sure you knew it was fine. You weren't the first or the last to tell me it was impossible, so it wasn't a big deal. He wasn't quite sure how Gran Torino reached that high, but somehow he was hitting All Might over the head before Izuku could even blink. Did you seriously tell the kid who killed your nemesis for you that he couldn't be a hero? How dumb can you get, you blonde oaf? Izuku's eyes widened and he waved his arm frantically. No! Stop! Really? It's all right! Don't hurt him! Gran Torino glared at All Might, but thankfully stopped hitting him. You're gonna be a great hero, kid. Don't let this idiot tell you otherwise. Izuku blinked a few times and turned to All Might, who shrugged and smiled sheepishly. Apparently, even the symbol of peace is wrong sometimes. Izuku sobbed harder than he ever had in his life. End of chapter.